Okay, so I had some success. The problem I was running into with I just looked up with the ganache is what was happening is, remember I said last night I suspect there's some conflict between what I was working on, working in Truffle and the chain in ganache. Well, yes, that was the case. Basically, if you run develop, it's going to create its own chain. If you want to run ganache, you need to set the config to point to that and use console. And where was that documented? Whoops. Interacting with your contract. So let's see if it talks about Truffle. Okay, right here. So Truffle console is for the ganache. Truffle develop, which I have up now, will create its own chain, its own developed chain. And you can see that here. When I started it up, it created accounts and private keys and all the rest of it. And I did start it on 8545 because that's probably how I had it configured. One interesting thing, okay, that I ran into is when I tried to unbox, I got these massive errors. Basically, it was probably because I didn't have everything installed. So what I did after I saw that the code was actually there, and what I ended up doing, let me see if I can find it, is I ran npm install, and it put whatever else I needed, went into develop. It created the accounts, it created the private keys, and created the mnemonic. Now again, you never want to use this stuff on a real chain. This is strictly for testing your contract. Compiled the contracts. I did compile, I did migrate, and it didn't have to compile, and it migrated everything to my development chain, including my simple storage. Then I went into start it up, and I ran into an issue, couldn't find the React scripts. I did an npm install. Now, if you just do an npm install, it's going to install it locally. If you want to install it globally, it's -G, but you can do some machinations to have it install it globally to your private directory, one of your directories, and then you don't have to use sudo. I chose to use sudo to put all my npm stuff in. Doesn't seem to hurt anything. Someone mentioned something, excuse me, that there could be some security issues to this. I'm not going to spend much time researching it, but that is something when you're actually configuring your dev box you may want to think about. I chose not to worry about it. So now, one interesting thing they point out here on this web page, let me make sure you can see it, is, oh, by the way, let me show you this. I did networks, that shows me that it's deployed, and this is the ID of the contract. And let's have a look here. What are you seeing now? Okay. So what you want to see, so you can see it worked. and it did get the stored value of that we were hoping for, and so it was able to get, because that was a problem. It was not getting the right network information. It wasn't getting just the right accounts or anything, because I was trying to send it to Ganache when I already had a developed chain in there. So it got all confused. And let's see, there was something else. Let's see if this is it that I want to show. Okay, that's, yeah, Truffle migrate. Let's see. So this is what I was talking about before with the two different console options. So this would be more directly to a separate chain. This would be just your initial testing, perhaps. And there are a bunch of commands. As I showed you the networks, you can look at accounts, you can look at balances, and that's all documented on the Truffle website. Let's see. Truffle, and we had talked about Truffle in the past, but I definitely learned something trying to get this little box up. It's kind of annoying that we had all these error messages, because if you look at it, you're going to say, you know, this is screwed up, and I spent time trying to get it to work. I found just ignoring it and then installing what I needed with an npm install, it seemed to be fine. So if you run into this on something, and when you're using this box, then you can just ignore it and you know, move on. So let me show you something. You know, I said ignore it, just do an npm install. It'll get you what you need. You may have to, when you go to actually run it, tell it about the React scripts, and then it should be fine, because that was my experience. And again, if you don't do the JSG, you don't have to use sudo, and it's local. If you are going to install something globally, you need sudo. Let me see here. Do I have another? I'm trying to find a terminal I'm not using. So let me bring up another terminal, and we can, actually, I know, we're going to do it this way. I'm going to show you, this was the original code, and it does, I'm going to switch from, let's do it in this one, because we've seen it's good to go. I don't think we need to see that again. Truffle. Trying to find app.js, Truffle, React. Trying to find the what I'm looking at in the app.js, which is what I want to show you. So let me look for that again, and here we go. Okay, let me move this up and make it a little bit bigger so you can see it. So this is our application. We took a look at this on the other day, but so what it's doing is it's going to get the accounts, and now that we have one chain, it'll get the right accounts, it'll be able to get the network ID, and then it'll know the network, and then it'll create our instance, and we will set it sets the state. So in React you have state variables, and it's gonna set Web3 account, and then contract instance, and this dot run example. So I guess that's what it's setting. I'm trying to remember set state. Let's set state here. So what does it say? Set Web3 to the state and then proceed with an example of interacting. Okay, so now what it does is it runs the example, because it's going to just go right through, and it's going to get constants based on the counts in the contract. Then in React you have to do the send. So it's going to say, this is saying take the set message input, put the input as 5, and then send it from account 0. So this is like when we were working with the contract in Remix, where we would specify an account where it would, well, in Remix, if you're in that part where you're interacting, it knows your account, and you can set that, and so you're telling it what account, you're giving it your method and the input to the method, and then what it's gonna then you're gonna also wait for a response. So it is gonna get the response, and it's gonna set the state storage value to the response. So it's gonna wait, send this, and then wait for a response. So this is getting the contract. So storing the value is one interaction. Then it's doing another call here to get the response and set the state to the response. And now this part in React is where it actually displays what you're going to see. So obviously this is very simple. You're basically making 2 calls to the contract, and you're going to then display your result. And there are other things you can do. For example, you know, you would may put a button in there, and so on. And we did a little example of that at one point. And when you press the button, it would take the value you set and store that into the contract. And so anyway, that is how this simple React box works. Again, there were some gotchas in terms of the fact that if you follow the instructions they give you to the letter, it's gonna give you an error on there that you just do an npm install. It'll give you the local modules you need, and I believe I did that. Let's see here. Okay, let me have a look here. Home 2. Yes, I did it from the client directory and just installed it right there. And that's what you want. So that will have anything it needs that it's not already installed globally. But again, the instructions, when I ran them to the letter, it did not like it, because they're telling you to run this from an empty directory, but the empty directory doesn't have your node module that you're going to need. It doesn't have everything you're going to need. So I got it to work by ignoring the error, then going into the client directory and just doing my npm install and getting what I needed. Another thing I ran into is my Chrome browser has MetaMask installed, and it got a little confused with that. So it was much easier when I connected to the, I used my Firefox Firefox browser. It did not have MetaMask. My guess is what you can do is, before you try to run the, actually run the client, you can probably, what I'd probably do is start up MetaMask and then go to the, to your test net, set it to go to that test network, and it should pick up your accounts, and then you should be able to proceed. But anyway, hopefully this has been helpful if you're trying to use the boxes and run into issues. If it has, please give a like, please subscribe, please ring the bell to get additional notifications, and please share it with your friends, and I will speak to you next time.